Sound check mula sa Bayang Pilipino. I am John DBS and we're doing a commentary for Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn. This is the sequel of the main game which won RPG of the Year in 2021, Tales of Arise. This is the sequel. And what we're doing is actually a boss rush, quote-unquote boss rush, because this game doesn't have an official either a mechanic to do boss rush or a boss rush mode, because we don't have much of the modding community in the Tales series. But one way to do the boss rush thing is we will mainly use the save and load function of this game, in which there are about 14 of them, and we will load essentially to the very next essential entry or the essential boss fight. And good news, there are only few bosses in this game compared to the main game, of course. And it's really short. And as you have seen here, it's about 40 minutes. And we will commit to an estimate of about 46, 47, 48 minutes if we're going to perform this at a marathon, especially GDQ. So let's start with the commentary. So Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn. So what this DLC does is it checks the data from the main game, and for time purposes, we will mainly do this with bonus. We will utilize the bonuses in this game so that we can do things much faster. So Tales of Arise. This is a completely different Tales game compared to all of the Tales games that I've been through so far, because we will elaborate that as we go on. So first and foremost, we pick up some gems. We set up some arts. These are all of the arts that we will use throughout the run. And as usual with the Tales games, we set up tactics. We adjust tactics. But Tales of Arise thinks very differently compared to the past Tales games that have been released. Say Zestiria, Berseria, Symphonia, Vesperia, Exelia 1, Exelia 2, Grace SF, whatsoever. Because this game essentially has the whole umbrella of tactics throughout the whole party. So essentially, the whole party has one tactic set. So if you say use healing in one member, that essentially applies to all of the members. So basically, in layman's term, this is one for all for one. So the tactic system of this game is essentially one for all for one. So in this game also, our main way of downing an enemy or stunning an enemy is by break boosts. So we will abuse this mechanic throughout the run, especially with the boss fights, so that we can actually deal way more damage. And the reason why I emphasize way more damage is simply because this game has really OP, overpowered strats. Essentially, that most of the arts are unlocked within like what, 4,000 skill points or so on. So we're picking up gems simply because we have equipments to sharpen. We have to buff up characteristics with our equipments. Just like with your usual JRPG tropes, that you have to strengthen your equipments, you have to attach a lot of characteristics, good characteristics. So that's essentially what we're doing. So we're doing party formation. So Dohalim, the red-haired guy, is essentially the most important thing in our party, because both Shion, the pink-haired girl, and Dohalim will be our main healers, and Rinwell will mainly be our buffer. That means she will essentially increase Alphen's stats. And we're doing skill panels because we're doing with bonus. We have about 3,000 plus from the beginning. And what you're seeing here is that we're unlocking first the Incineration Wave. That is the most OP art Alphen has. And then Flame Edge Burst. And then increase near death attack. So this has a game that is pretty much has a parallel to, which is Dark Souls. In Dark Souls, right, you equip a ring in which red tearstone ring, if I remember correctly, so that you can sharpen your attacks very much, especially when you're near death. That is essentially the main strat for Alphen, because Alphen is your most reliable way of dealing damage. Just look at that. Incineration Wave, you kill a lot of enemies. So that's the whole strat. You break the whole game. So one of the things in this game, actually there will be only 2 mob fights. Well, there are a lot of mob fights in this game actually, but in this game there are only like 2 horde encounters. Horde encounters. So I'm not finished explaining while this fight is still on. Let me explain the skill panel, what happened to the skill panel and the arts. So in Tales games, as we all know, we can turn on and off the arts. We essentially turned off the mystic arts because we don't need mystic arts in this game. Again, this particular Tales game thinks very differently. Mystic arts consume so much time, and at the same time, it's not that reliable. And we also disable unnecessary healing arts or buffs, except for sharpness, heal, and first aid, because these are quick heals actually, quick heals and buffs. For the rest of the skill panel, for Shion and Dohalim, we pretty much enhance their healing capabilities, and that's it. For Rinwell, we unlock the sharpness. Of course, we unlock sharpness and increase BG. Same goes for Kisara and Law. Kisara and Law will not be used throughout this run, unfortunately, but they will be useful for some break boosts. So that is why we increase their BG from the start. So one of the mandatory fights in this game is we actually fight one of the slimes here and use happy battles, because when you fight this particular ooze, Keyami Ooze, defeating it will reward you with so much skill points. So much skill points. It's about 3,000 depending on how you defeat it. If you die too much, the best thing that you can get is a 1-5. But if you're able to stun it, defeat it gracefully like that, you will be able to get so much SPs. So just look how OP is Incineration Wave is. So look at that, it's more than 1-5 if I'm not mistaken. So we can unlock a lot of skills again, mainly the flaming edge time, increased down damage, and flaming edge burst. Essentially, what these skills are: flaming edge burst essentially increases your attack power. Flaming edge time essentially fastens up your use of the flaming strike. And down damage, essentially, if the enemy is stunned, you have way more damage, especially if it is stunned. That's it. So boss fights in this game are actually a joke, at the very least for the first few. And I died right there. I should not be dying there. I sucked up dodging during this round. But just look at the damage. Just look at the damage. Just look at your DPS. It's a ton. And you're depleting tons of health. Especially combined with Rainbow's buff, sharpness, you're dealing a lot. You're dealing a lot. And especially this is downed. Combined with well-timed heals, it's instant knockout within a few hits. So that's how OP you can get, especially if you avail with bonus. So that's the joke of a fight, actually. That's the joke of a fight. So yeah. So we load now to the very next boss fight, which is the Venoflage. So we skip, by the way, again, I have mentioned before, this is a boss rush category. We skip most of the walking segments, even the pickups, because again, this is very repetitive. So I have to change tactics here. So that my party members are consistent in terms of healing and buffing. Because if you switch to other tactics, chances are, if you call them for healing, it might not match with your time very well, with what you want, with the timing you want. So that is why we essentially time the we essentially match the time. So that's another easy foe. That's another easy foe, actually, because it's not that hard of a fight. It can be done in a few seconds. So we now proceed to the very next mandatory fight, which is another Horde fight. Horde Mob. And this is an annoying. This is easily the most annoying Horde fight, because this involves both flying foes and wolves. And wolves are fast in terms of movement. And they're quite annoying, actually. They're quite annoying. And this is also the reason why we want the Incineration Wave. Because the damage of Incineration Wave is very linear. It has a good coverage. Good hitbox. I think the audio is not synced in a way, but especially with the fast menuing, I apologize for that. Yeah, this was a bad fight, unfortunately, because I died once. I shouldn't die, actually, in all honesty. But yeah, what happened? Yeah, a minor detail here. The reason why we jump is that if we normally run, we will trigger some long scripted cutscene instead of, well, it saves a few seconds, like maybe 3, 4, 5 seconds. Yeah, but it's a minor detail. This game has a couple of such events. So this is the next annoying Horde fight because again the wolves are quite fast and also the winged foes can summon whirlwinds, which if not timed well it could lead to Alphen's death, in which you have to consume life bottles. And when you consume life bottles, you have to consume healing, you have to menu all over again, you have to buff with renewal again, and that's quite annoying also. So that is why you need to defeat the wolves as much as possible. And this is a good fight actually. This is a good fight, especially Alphen hasn't died once in this fight, but the earlier fight was just plain bad. Oh, that was a close one before Alphen died, but it's a good thing that we were able to see it again. So look at that, Incineration Wave deals tons of damage. That is why you want that skill. And that hitbox too, especially with the leader hitbox. So that was a good fight. So 111 is actually a really good mob fight. So we're loading to the very next stop. Actually, this is not a boss fight, but a mandatory showcase, a mandatory event that we need to showcase. So shoutouts to Eku or Eklevi, who is a fellow runner of Tales of Rise. One of his new routes is his route is essentially feeding a new recipe. I will explain what new era Gnocchi does, which is triggered by finishing this quest, and that's it. That's it. That is what we need to show. We need to trigger that quest, and essentially we need to show that we're actually doing it. So this is now the segment where we actually enhance our equipment. We need to craft level 4 magic ring. If we don't craft level 4 magic ring, instead the highest magic ring that we have is only like level 3, then that's fine as well. But what you have to look out are the characteristics. This is very common in JRPGs, especially in crafting. And guess what? I'm also an Atelier runner, so characteristics really could turn tables. So what you're looking here are essentially, you want to see either a fire damage plus 15% or maybe some stat buff like elemental attack plus 60 or even plus 20 would do, that's fine. But as long as you have buffs, either fire damage or even elemental attack plus 60, that's fine also. That is the most important thing. You have to fuse your equipment with those characteristics. So the very next boss fight is, once again, we're fighting another Keyami Ooze because we're not yet done with the whole skill tree of Alphen. We're not yet that satisfied. So, especially not everything has the skills that we need for Alphen are not all unlocked. That we need actually. So we should be able to defeat it. Sure, should be able to defeat it. Yeah, I had to menu a bit for a bit there because I legit thought that I might not defeat the Ooze on time, so I needed another one. So we're unlocking a lot. Increased near death, more downs, more down damage. I think we unlock another Flaming Edge Burst as well. So that is what essentially what we are unlocking. We unlock a lot so that we have better DPS. And in action JRPGs like this, better DPS, higher DPS means faster, essentially. So this is the very first Nazamil fight. Yes, we are. So this is the whole Nazamil arc. This whole DLC is dedicated in defeating Nazamil. Who would have thought? But this is such a good DLC as well because this is the only Tales game, as far as I know, that you can actually perform a boss rush in the main game. So yeah. So again, the main strat is essentially Incineration Wave, and timing very well to use Break Boost. Timing. So that is an example of a timing. And we use Dohalim for bigger heals so that we can deal more damage. So look at that damage, 50k. That's a lot. And then we heal again. So we're able to do the strike. So we proceed now to the second phase. And while Nazamil is down, we deal another damage. That's essentially what we're doing. Now in this second phase, you cannot attack Nazamil unless you use a break boost. The Japanese runner I mentioned before, Echo, was able to deal damage while Nazamil is in air via Rinwell's Divine Saber, but unfortunately it's not a reliable damage considering we did not go upgrade Rinwell's equipment, so it's not that useful damage at all. But this is really useful damage considering Nazamil stayed on ground. So this fight is actually random. You can actually see a Nazamil which goes up to the sky again and use Lukup's Melm, which is the art you've seen before, which is a very colorful one. But in this case, in this video, we're able to see Nazamil on ground very consistently. So we have a Mystic card. This is a scripted, by the way. This is a scripted event. So if we die here, it's not that big of a deal. It's a scripted event. And by the way, that was a gold because we got a good fight. 206 is really good with the bonus run. So that's really good. An average fight of this is like 3 minutes. Normally you would get maybe 240 to 250. But if you get somewhere near 205 to 220, that's a really good time. Again, the good time was because Nazamil stayed on ground. If Nazamil stayed on the sky, that's essentially another like 15 seconds. So this is where now we cook New Era Gnocchi because you want Shion to cook it so that you can have 90+% on effect and in terms of cooking consumption time as well. So essentially you have the whole cooking effects throughout the last dungeon. By the way, this is the last dungeon, the Keystone dungeon. So we skip all of the walking segments in this dungeon and fight the very first boss, which is, tada! Nazamil Clone. So the main strat again is timing with the break boost and attacking. And look at that damage, 54,000. One of the annoying things in this dungeon, especially if you're fighting the Nazamil clones, is Nazamil clones are quick. Nazamil clones are quick. They can actually kill you without you noticing it. Look at that one. Nazamil will suddenly use melee attack and kill Alphen on the spot. So you might wonder why Alphen dies easily in this game. It's simply because earlier, the very first thing we did in the run is to unlock, to check the Reckless Abandon artifact. That basically deals double damage for both user and the enemy. So that is the reason why we are able to... That's the reason why we are able to deal significant... The enemies also deal significant damage. So that's a good time as well. It should be about 1 minute. A good fight would be about like 40 to 50, I guess. 40 to 50. So essentially this dungeon is, we have to find the key. We have to find the key so that we can access to the higher floors of the dungeon. And each of these keys are guarded by Nazamil clones. And that's it. Guarded by Nazamil clones. So the very next fight is your Bavarian Ooze, which is essentially a big ooze fight. Again, the same strats, but this time we have to be very careful here because it's very random. It's very random. This... Oh, I'm not seeing a good fight here because the Ooze is very unpredictable in this case because I did not anticipate him using jump attacks. That is why I kept on risking, probably praying for a miracle that the Ooze will actually use something different. And actually it isn't. I did not predict again that it will use the body slam attack. So I was doing really badly here. And yeah, this is one of the worst case scenarios in this dungeon, is that if you die a lot, chances are you will not really have a good time in this dungeon. You will not really have a good time with this dungeon. It's so bad. And now we're just merely proceeding to the second phase. And I just happened to trigger the Berserk Ooze Hive, which is really bad as well because whenever a boss gets Berserk, it increases a lot. Attack, defense, whatsoever. So yeah, it's that bad. And again, your only way of reliable damage is, you guess it, Incineration Wing, and buffs of course. Yeah, I was really having a bad fight here because I did not execute it well, I guess. I did not execute it well, I guess. I mean, I did not anticipate the actions at all. So, yeah, we're able to defeat the Ooze, but at the cost of 90 seconds. About 90 seconds. It's so bad. But yeah. Either way, we still proceed to the very next boss fight. So, the very next boss fight is another Nazamil clone, but with a different set of mob. So, earlier you have seen a golem. This time, you're about to see a spider. You're about to see a spider. So, By the way, I haven't mentioned for this fight, you really have to be careful with this fight. You don't want to die here, and at the same time, you don't want to die here, and at the same time, you don't want to burn Alphen's break boost. You will see why later. You will see the main reason why. As you're seeing here, I'm fighting really safe here because I really need to save Alphen's break boosts. I really need to save it. So again, usual stats, but this time you have to be safe. Look at that. The moment Nazamil touches Alphen's sprite or back, it's automatically dead. That's a really bad sign. So that was a good fight. So the very next fight is what I have mentioned earlier. We save Alphen's break boost because of this fight. By the way, you have seen also, I needed to adjust the manual because I belong to the school of thought of this game that I really don't trust the auto mode in this game. Simply because the auto mode in this game is essentially Alphen needs to approach the enemy first before attacking nearby the enemy. And this is the reason why Alphen needs to save the break boost. The break boost will stun both Armatils so that you can utilize the down damage from the second incineration wave, and then it's pretty much okay, we're out. It's pretty much we're out because it's that stacked. It's that stacked. And that is why we're able to fight the Armatil in just 20 seconds. About 20 seconds. So the very next boss fight again is another Nazamil Clone, but this time we have two minions. So we now have both the spider and the golem. Both the spider and the golem. And yeah, the biggest hurdle in this fight is actually to remove the minions. Because the reason why you want to remove the minions first is that they both Nazamil Clone, the spider and the golem can actually kill Alphen in just one shot. Because again of the reckless abandon. So you want to kill all of the minions first before you kill the actual Nazamil Clone. It's much more annoying to deal with Nazamil first, and then you still have to fail. And also the minions are easier to eliminate as well, so it's not that hard to do. So again, usual strats, big numbers, big damage. Unfortunately, we were not able to deal Nazamil right away, but yeah, that was a good fight. That was a good fight. I did not see the time, but because it was a gold split, I guess it was a good time. So this is the very last boss fight in this DLC. We now fight the actual Nazamil again. This for the second time. The actual Nazamil, and then we do the usual skill panel. This time we increase critical damage, and because we have extra SP from the side quest to obtain the new era Gnocchi, we're able to unlock another skill, which is add Alphen's AG or gauge, action gauge, I guess. So the first phase of the Nazamil fight is Nazamil will showcase the Arts of the Five Lords. Arts of the Five Lords from the main game. So the first phase is actually Volran's ice attack, I guess. Volran's ice attack. But we were not able to witness it because Alphen was able to block on time, stun on time. And again, the usual strat. Timing with heals. Timing with heals. Timing with heals. Timing with Nazamil's animation. And then all is coming together. All is coming together. So you're seeing now why I mentioned that this is pretty much identical to a Dark Souls speedrun. Not really identical, but very parallel or very similar. Because it's pretty much Alphen the ones attacking, and then the rest of the crew are support. Healers or buffers. That's it. So the second phase of this fight is Nazamil will now use its attack that was used on us earlier in the first fight, in the first encounter. So the Alma. Gosh, the attack names of this in this DLC are so obnoxious. Melm. So this is the Mystic Art we've encountered earlier. But this time, we can survive this attack. Actually, we can survive this attack, provided that we actually dodge it. So, let's see how we're going to dodge it. And by the way, this is one of the effects of the new era Gnocchi. We're actually seeing more significant damage. So, let's dodge it. So yeah. And then the rest of the fight is we just deplete all the health to 0 so that we can actually proceed to the next fight. The very next fight. So yeah. A good fight of this is about a really good fight is about 2 minutes and 15 seconds. An average is like 2:45 to 3 minutes. Beyond 3 minutes is pretty much bad. So this is where now Nazamil is consumed to a monster. So, and as you're seeing, the health is about 850,000. That's how big of a monster this final boss is. If you play this in the highest difficulty, the unknown mode, this boss has 2 million health. 2 million HP. Can you believe it? 2 million HP. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? And what we're about to see also, in terms of the boss movements, is pretty much a fighting character. It's pretty much a fighting character. So this is one of the instances where we use Kisara because mandatorily, because Kisara can actually block a charging foe and it will actually stun. And it will actually stun. This is one of the mandatory things why we actually use Kisara. The knighted party member. That is our main source of stun for this fight. Yeah, it's only between Alphen and Kisara in which we can actually stun this boss. And also this boss has a lot of moves. It can use tail attack, it can use charge, spin to win, punch, something like that. So yeah. This boss can do a lot of things. It's also like a fighting character in Tekken. Yeah, if you're familiar with the Tekken series, it's pretty much this boss fight. The second phase is a much more aggressive Oppressor fight, Nazamil fight. It's much more aggressive. It will now shoot a hyper beam. It will now shoot a hyper beam. It will shoot a hyper beam. So the main strategy is you have to wait for Alphen and Kisara's boost arc, break boost to actually stun the foe. So that's your main strategy here. So same stats. So we're dealing significant damage, about 84k. Unfortunately, it's just 61,000. So we're able to use Alphen's stun, and we're now ready to proceed to the final phase. Actually, to the final phase. This is the final phase. So the usual strats again, but this time after 2 shots of Incineration Wave, we have to go near the boss and sneak an Incineration Art, the Incineration Wave, sneak another one. And the challenge here is actually to beat the foe in using Mystic Art. Because by this time, after this attack, the boss will actually initiate its sequence towards the Mystic Art, the final Mystic Art. So you really have to time your heals, you have to time everything. You have to time everything. And actually, the critical hit will actually really matter in this sequence. Yeah, the critical hit will actually really matter in this sequence. Unfortunately, in this run, if I'm not mistaken, the critical hit did not go through. Unfortunately so. Unfortunately. Very unfortunate. Yeah, and very unfortunate. It did not make it. The boss has still like 24,000. Oh, it was able to make it. Okay, so yeah, that is one of the lucky moments, crux moments. I was able to make it. So if the boss was able to trigger the Mystic Art, it will consume you 30 seconds. Yeah, it will consume you 30 seconds. So yeah, this is Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn. So you might have observed throughout the whole run, it's pretty much parallel to a Dark Souls run. You dodge attacks, you spam only one attack, you deplete so much of your health to increase your attack power. Very parallel to Dark Souls, to our Dark Souls speedrun. But of course, the main difference between a Dark Souls and a Tales game is simply the Dark Souls has a slower pace in terms of the player controls, while Tales games are pretty much fast-paced. Especially, there are a lot of things going on in this game, especially with the arts. But, well, it's pretty much often doing the main damage, so it doesn't matter that much, to be honest. So, essentially, the story of this game is you have been pursuing Nazamil for the whole game, and that's it. You want to rescue Nazamil from being consumed. And that's it. So, it's a very short run. It's actually a short run. It can be done in about 46, 47, 48 minutes. And I think I believe also Tales of Arise deserves a GDQ slot. Especially with the boss rush category. Especially Tales of Arise had a historical moment where Tales of Arise won RPG Player in 2021. And I believe it's about time, especially with the 30th anniversary of the Tales series coming up in December 2021. So yeah.
った時は力になるよ。それが友達だもん。タイト自分で。
By the way, this song is named Hibana if I remember correctly. Yeah. Hibana from the main game.
ナザミルが怖いのは今まで自分を持たなかったからだ。今からでいい。
So yeah, this is your usual RPG trope that someone doesn't know who someone got amnesia. So yeah, as I have mentioned before, this is a Tales game where I was able to compress in less than an hour, and I think this can be done in a GBK platform, a GBK marathon. So yeah. And on that note, mula sa Bayang Pilipino, John DBS out and enjoy the ending sequence.